What's up? Seoul'sGotSOL here. 여러분 안녕하세요. 우리 한국인 구독자들한테 말씀 하나 할 건데 오늘 방송은 영어로 할게요. 왜냐면 솔라나 위 사람들한테 이제 말씀 전달해야 되니까 만약에 해석 필요하면 저한테 그 댓글에 부탁하세요. 제가 해석해 줄게요. 번역해 줄게요. So I'm going to be doing the broadcast in English today for obvious reasons. This is going to go out to the higher ups at Solana. I'm sure Justin will get around to watching this at some point, or some other people, whoever it reaches in Solana. I'm sure they'll find out about it later. The people who want to know why I'm broadcasting about this, Justin from Solana Ventures, he tweeted something very interesting this morning. It's something that that I care a lot about in Solana, right? As an investor in Solana, like just the average, retail investor. So I'm going to be looking at the tweet, breaking it down, and telling people my thoughts about this tweet. Obviously, there's going to be some people who are curious about this, right? Who should tune in, right? What kind of people would be interested in this kind of broadcast? Obviously, the Solana community is going to be curious. There's a lot of people who probably are thinking the same thing. And of course, outsiders, people who don't really know what happens in Solana, right? People outside our community, I'm sure they don't really pay that close attention to what goes on within Solana, and like what happens between, different people in Solana, and how the community is treated, and what the community does, and the relationship between all these actors in Solana. I'm sure those people are just curious, right? About these kinds of things from someone who's from the community, right? Someone who has been investing in Solana for a very long time. Those are the kind of people who want to probably tune in today. I'm sure they're curious. Yes, I am the first Solana YouTuber, so if you didn't know that, yes, that's the perspective I'm coming from. Okay. So let's go and look at the tweet. It's kind of interesting. He starts out by saying, in my time at Solana Ventures, I've seen a worrying trend emerging in the transition from private to public markets. So he's talking about, basically what he's referring to is all these projects in Solana, they have seed rounds, right? These founders, they get their funding from VCs. So if you know nothing about Solana, if you're new to Solana, you don't really know what happens. Basically, what the founders here do is they go to the VCs, they get money from the VCs, they raise money from the VCs for their projects. And that's basically the only real interests of 99% of the founders in Solana. They don't really care about the community. This is something I've been pointing out for a very long time, as early as last October. As early as last October. So, I was very clear about what the Solana community should be thinking, especially the Solana Korea community. I represent the Solana Korea community, right? I'm not someone who was paid to start YouTubing for Solana. No one paid me to do this. Like, no one told me to do this. This is just completely something that happened organically as just an average retail investor in Solana. That's how I started this channel. If you're curious about like what I do on my channel, right? If you have no idea what I'm doing, right? Um, it's been a very rewarding experience. I do like YouTubing for Solana because it is something that I'm very passionate about as an investor. If you wanted to know where I'm coming from, right? If you have no idea what I do or who I am, right? But like I said, I was warning my subscribers about these VCs in Solana a very, very long time ago, just an extremely long time ago. And I was warning my subscribers about a possible bear market, right? And during this broadcast, my subscribers, my Korean subscribers, they know this already. I was warning my subscribers, like, you have to be very careful when you invest in Solana. There's a massive VC influence in Solana. They control everything here. It's the rumors are true. Like, if you're wondering, like, as someone, if you're an outsider, you don't really know what happens in Solana. You hear a lot of things about, is Solana a VC chain? Is it all controlled by the VCs? To a large extent, it is. It's just a playground for VCs, and that's the honest to God truth, right? It's the honest to God truth. So yes, there's a massive VC influence. Me, I'm on the other side of that equation, right? I come from the community. I've said this a million times to my subscribers. They know what's up with me and what I do and what I stand for, who I stand for, what kind of values I stand for. As someone who comes from the community, obviously, my interests are diametrically opposed to the VCs that are involved in Solana, right? I warn my subscribers to be very careful. Yeah, you have to be very careful when you're investing in Solana. These VCs cannot be trusted. I've said this a million times. If you follow my tweets, if you know my tweets, you know how I feel about the VCs. Let's go to the third part here. This trend has sparked a narrative, a big pump, then down only from public sale that goes directly against the open market ethos of crypto and reduces trust in the community. So, like I said, the founders, they run to the VCs. What happens after these private rounds, after these seed rounds, they have their IDO or IEO or whatever, right? Retail is allowed to buy buy these tokens, and we see just insane dumps after retail is allowed to invest in these projects, right? And he says it's kind of hurting our community, and obviously that's true. I mean, it. Everyone knows this. We all know what's going on in Solana, right? I was the first one to talk about this. Like I said, I was talking about this shit happening as early as October 27th. Nobody in Solana was bringing up this bullshit that has been happening since forever in Solana, other than myself. It was me. It was only me. Only I had the courage to say this kind of stuff. It's kind of real shit, right? That's why my subscribers tune in. They're curious about someone who's on the inside, and as someone who's from the community, right? What kinds of things we deal with, right? That's why a lot of subscribers probably tune in, if I had to guess. Obviously, I like to look at projects and analyze things for my viewers, but it's more of like a community building thing for me, right? Like, people like to see like what other people in the community are thinking and feeling, right? That's what I like to do. That's my main focus here, right? As a YouTuber for Solana, right? And the first Solana YouTuber. Let's move on. Founders face enormous pressure in the fundraising process as investors have massive amounts of capital to deploy in private markets and wanting to see progress between rounds as well as markups that satisfy their LPs. Okay, so I mean, if you think about the purpose, right, the function of a VC, their job is to make as much money as possible from retail. That's the exact purpose of a VC, right? It's not a narrative, right? He's saying it's a narrative here. If you look here, it's a narrative. It's not a narrative, it's a fact. That's exactly what VCs do. Their sole purpose is to make money off retail. Everyone knows what VCs do, right? That's the their sole purpose of existing, right? They make money off of us, right? Now, he kind of shifting the blame here, in my opinion, a little bit towards the LPs, right? The liquidity providers, right? The people who contribute to these funds, right? Anytime you see, right, the announcement of some fund that is started, right, there's like people who have contributed whatever money, right, to start this fund, this investment, this VC fund, blah blah blah, right? Those are the LPs, right? The people that have put money into this fund, this venture capital fund, right? And so the pressure from the people who are providing that liquidity for these funds, right? He says that that's the reason why a lot of this stuff is happening, right? To me, that's more shifting the blame, right? It's just responsibility shirking to me, right? In my opinion, right? 5, let's move down here. The result is that many projects will 3 to 10x their valuation between private and public rounds, raising FDVs from tens of millions to hundreds of millions in the process. Why do they do that? Obviously, the higher the valuation, that's more money that these VCs are going to be making, right? As the FTVs go up, right? So valuation goes up, VCs are happy. That's money in the bank for them, right? So that happens. That process occurs between private and public rounds. Again, between the seed and then by the time we have the IEO or the IDO, right? By the time it's on FTX, where most of us are buying, that's where that 3 to 10x has already happened, right? So this is why you see announcements, right? When you see tokenomics announcements, they have like the price that the VCs pay, it's like 5 cents, and then by the time you buy it on FTX, it's like 25 cents, something like that, for example, right? That's what it means, right? When this valuation goes from a 3 to 10x, right? After, by the time it becomes the public round, right? We'll go to point 6. While the intention here is genuine to make previous investors happy, again, the VC funds, right, that are doing the fundraising, and then the LPs behind them, those are the previous investors happy, and to distribute tokens to the public via an initial offering, IDO or IEO, the focus is often misplaced. So, why is he saying this? Like, what kinds of reasons could he be saying that the focus is misplaced? Again, he's part of Solana Ventures. He comes from that community, the VC community, right? So everything that he's saying in this tweet, you should always think about what are the interests of people in Solana. That's an extremely important thing you have to learn when you're investing in Solana. Like, you have to try to figure out what kinds of interests are behind people when they tweet certain things, right? So he's from Solana Ventures. He's got a vested interest in saying the kinds of things that he's saying in this tweet. That's something you should keep in mind, right? We'll go to the top tier 7. In an effort to launch at a low market cap, as opposed to a more fair FTV, founders are forced to launch with very low float, leading to a pump at TGE. This is just another word for IDO or IEO. As retail rushes to get in, followed by a dump when the token lists on public markets and finds liquidity. I've gone over countless examples of this kind of bullshit happening in Solana. This is not news to anyone who pays attention to Solana. When I went over all these Solana VCs like Sino, RK Capital, A41, Defiance, Solar Eagle Fund, all of these projects that they have been involved in, you just saw like the most ridiculous price action, just insane dumping, right? Port Finance, look at what happened there, right? All of those projects, right? So that's what he's talking about, right? You have that IEO, and then boom, it just goes to zero, absolute zero, right? The one thing founders are often not considering in this equation is the underlying purpose of a TGE, aka IEO, IDO. If the purpose is simply fundraising, continuing via private markets is a perfectly acceptable route, even if you have raised before. Okay. So for the reasons that he already mentioned, right, these kinds of things are happening, according to him. And he's saying if you have these seed rounds, if the purpose is simply fundraising, continuing via private markets, you can just raise in with private equity, whatever VCs, whatever funding you need to get on private market, right? He says it's whatever, okay, that you can do it that way, right? Then he goes on to talk about us, right? Public sales. This is us, people who are buying on the exchanges or on Radium Accelerator, things like that. When you have those IDOs, public sales are truly not just a fundraising mechanism. While they may seem like one on the surface, the greatest value add a IDO or IEO can provide is as a community building mechanism. Okay, he's a VC saying this. You should take this with a grain of salt. He's not representing the interests of the community at all. And that's the honest to God truth, right? You have to think about, where are these sentiments coming from? Like, who's saying it? Who are the people saying this shit, right? This is not coming from the Solana community. It's coming from a VC. This just so happens to be, a VC, right, contained, right, within Solana itself, right? It's Solana Ventures is a VC arm of Solana. If you don't have any idea about what Solana Ventures is, I recommend watching this old video. I've gone over the corporate structure of Solana, basically looking at What kinds of actors are in Solana at the executive level? I recommend knowing everyone, right? You should know Solana like the back of your hand. You got to know everyone, every VC. I looked at every VC Solana, and I looked at basically every engineer in Solana, everyone on the executive team. I looked at everyone, so I know everyone who's involved in Solana, right? Solana Ventures, right? It's the VC arm of Solana. They have their own separate VC fund, and they basically just fund pretty much like every major project in Solana. So if you're thinking like, is Solana Ventures like a signal that you should invest? Not necessarily. They kind of have an obligation to seed basically as many Solana projects as they can, and they can't really do anything about it because it's from Solana itself, right? So there's no real like alpha signal, in my opinion, right? It's something that you should be watching and paying attention to, but doesn't necessarily mean right. It's like going to be a guaranteed investment, right? There's no guarantees in crypto. Now back to this, right? The truth, however, is that public sales are truly not just a fundraising mechanism. So back to this idea, in my opinion, right? I'm going to show you like like how true this is, right? How seriously founders in Solana take this notion, right? How serious are they about sentiments like this? And I'll show you from my perspective, right? That's what people are going to be curious about, and that's what people are going to be watching this for, right? But let me finish up the tweet here. Oftentimes, your biggest fans and greatest champions will be your early retail investors, people like us, right? Those who buy in at TGE or shortly after public scales and secondary markets. It is critical that you consider this group of supporters when you think about long-term token strategy. Crypto is a momentum-based market, and the last thing you want to do is lose your early supporters due to a down-only fundraising structure that sees your biggest fans buying in at the local top. Again, every VC project in Solana basically had this. It was applicable to basically every VC project in Solana last year, like maybe more than 90%. Like you just saw this kind of stuff happening. It was pretty bad, like pretty bad, especially as someone who has been actively looking for investment opportunities, right? As a retail investor in Solana, it has been brutal. It's very kind of frustrating, right? As someone who wants to invest in these projects, but we don't get any chances, right? It's not a level playing field whatsoever. So let me show you, what kinds of things like make me say right this, right? Why am I saying this stuff? So my response, just my basic, simple response to his tweet is, actions speak louder than words, right? As far back as October, I was telling, right, um, every founder in Solana, right, you have Korean investors who want to invest in your projects. Like we are very passionate, right? The first Solana YouTuber is a Korean, and my entire brand is focused on Solana. I don't invest in anything outside of Solana. This is the only thing I care about in crypto, investing in Solana. I told these projects, these founders, like, how about uh, how about introducing yourselves so that my Korean community can take a look at your project and see what kinds of opportunities we can have to invest as part of the literal first Solana YouTube community, right? And as someone who leads the Solana Korea community, right? Um, and this was October 13th, right? I tweeted this out very early, even before the hackathon concluded, right? Before any winners were announced, I was looking at these projects, right, in depth, right? You can see this video that I uploaded on the 25th, right? This was on the 13th. I uploaded this video on the 25th. This was just like I think less than 2 weeks after, right? And I looked at literally every single DeFi project in Solana. And I'm just going to use the example of Delta One here, right? I marked the projects that I was personally interested in with the special watermark, right? And Delta One was one of those protocols that I was personally interested in, and I uploaded probably their first video on YouTube ever, right, on the 25th, right? Now, I also did a special broadcast for them because they did reply to this tweet. They were the only project that replied, right? So, out of respect for that, I did dedicate an entire broadcast to explaining what it is in detail, right, to my subscribers, right, the people in the Solana career community, right, on Christmas, by the way. This is Christmas morning, and you know what, like what happens when when I try to give coverage to these projects, right? The people who are the most passionate in the Solana community, right? Like we want to invest, like we like these projects, like we're interested in investing in these projects. Well, they had a $9.1 million seed raise, right, with all these VCs, Ship Capital. These are the Macalino dudes that are behind this. The guys behind Saber Ship is the Saber people there, and these Delta One founders, they ran to the VCs, right? You've seen my old videos, right? I've I've been saying this for ages, just forever, right? Just forever, right? These Solana founders, they run to the VCs, and it is extremely frustrating. It's just annoying as hell to have every single project that you are interested in investing in, right? And the VC swoop in and they just fuck us, right? And that's a fact, right? It's like I don't know how this happens every single time. Every single project that I want to invest in, VCs end up getting in and we have to buy like at 5x 10x valuations, right? The price has pumped already 5 10x, right? And then that's when we get in, right? I don't know how that happens every time. And this is the truth about the VCs. This is the absolute truth, right? The VCs, again, they are here to screw you. That's their job, right? So again, when you are looking, right, to invest in Solana, right? Solana Ventures is putting this out, and it is interesting, right, to see people in Solana other than myself, right, other than myself, who are actually saying this kind of shit in public. And I tweeted about this because it is kind of notable that this is coming from the very top, right? The 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 absolute top people at Solana are tweeting this, and that is kind of interesting, right? Now, when I point the stuff out, right, because of everything that is happening in Solana, right, things like shit like this happening, right, I am extremely skeptical. I'm very hesitant to officially endorse projects on Solana. Like for the record, I've only endorsed one and only one, right? It's just when you see stuff like this happening, right? People who are the most passionate in the community, we get left out, we get shut out. Like none of my subscribers get into these seed rounds. I don't get into these seed rounds, right? I don't know how the VCs are able to do it every single goddamn time. It's annoying as hell, but that's just a fact, right? It's a fact. Nobody trusts these founders. Nobody trusts these VCs in Solana, and that's a fact, right? And that's why I tweeted about this. I quote tweeted him. I said the VCs are now wondering publicly if retail will ever return. I'm going to be extremely hesitant, like just very reluctant to officially endorse projects on Solana because this is just the status quo. This is how it works in Solana. You just see this shit all the time, every single time, right? So, until you see like actual concrete steps being taken by these founders and the VCs, right? To prove like the onus is on them, right? They've got to prove to us that we can trust them, right? Or else retail is going to stay away forever, as they should, right? These founders, they pay these influencers to post videos saying that their project's going to 100x. Everybody knows the thing that I posted about Hubble. Hubble did not 100x from the time that Wendy was making this video. This is January. Hubble did not 100x. It says 100x Solana project. It did not 100x. I don't promote any projects in Solana as going to be 100x projects. In fact, the few projects that I'm genuinely interested, right, that I'm actually really, really like, right, projects like Pith, of course, I want to invest in Pith. But even with Pith, I saw things that I didn't like, right, things about their private there's some private investors, right? I don't know who these private investors were. If you go to their tokenomics page, you can see that shit, right? I have to be 100% absolutely certain that these founders are going to be protecting us. Are they going to take care of us? Are their VCs going to be looking out for us, or are they going to try to screw us, right? I have to be absolutely 100% confident, and it's almost goddamn near impossible for me to feel that way about these projects and to make official endorsements. And that's why I've only endorsed one project officially, right? It's sad for me to say it as someone who really likes Solana and wants to, invest in some of these things. It's kind of painful. It really is. It's frustrating. It's annoying. And it's just the reality of investing in Solana, right? So, I told my subscribers, right, they got to follow the money. Do you know how much these founders are paying their community managers, right? If you don't, I mean, you don't really know how to quantify how much these projects care about the community, in my opinion, right? There's certain things that you got to be looking out for to really gauge if these founders are, they have your interests in mind, right? Or do they have their VC's interests in mind? Right, you got to follow the money, right? You start from this first principle always, right? Always start from this principle, right? How will these projects empower their communities? That's something that every Solana founder is going to have to think very seriously about, right? I mean, think about me, my personal situation, right? As a Solana YouTuber, right? Why do I do this shit despite my frustrations? Because I do genuinely like Solana, right? And I am someone who represents the community. I come from the community. I like teaching people, right, how to invest in Solana because I've been doing it for such a long time, right? And they're in the same boat as I am. My subscribers are in the same boat, right? We're doing it together, right? It's like a group, learning process, right? That's why I like to do it, because my subscribers teach me things and I teach them things, right? But it's very important to have this mindset. It's extremely crucial, very important, right? Straight up 100%, no equivocating, right? You have to really know how to invest in these projects, and you have to be very skeptical. I tell this all the time, and particularly, right, as someone who represents the Korean Solana community, right? I mean, I'm a YouTuber. I try to be right as honest as I can to these the Solana Korea community, right? When you search Solana on YouTube, you just see some weird ass shit, right? I mean, occasionally, right, every once in a while, I go to these YouTubers and I see, like, when they're promoting Solana, like how are they promoting Solana? Like, how much do they really know, right? Uh, I mean, you go to their channels, like, they don't really have a passion for Solana, and it shows, right? I mean, this is just one video out of like a million other random ass videos, Bitcoin, whatever. You can see this shit in Korean. He's talking about Bitcoin or whatever, right? There's very few people who have that genuine passion for Solana, who want to invest in Solana and dedicate themselves to Solana, right? And that's something that that I feel like my subscribers, they know, right? People are not dumb. They can feel how genuine people are, right? I'm doing this because this is what I like to do, right? So to my community, right, to the people who come across this later, right? I'm sure some people will come across this video later, right? Be very skeptical until you see actual concrete steps taken by these Solana founders to make these projects worth investing for the average retail investor. Until you see those things, right, you have to be very wary. Gen 1 founders, right, these protocols, these founders, Gen 1, the first generation, it's just 99% of them are not even worth uh, uh, buying at this point, right? Those I consider most like of Gen 1. What I mean by Gen 1 is basically every single project that came out from last year or earlier than last year, most of those projects will not be worth investing. They got massive VC bags that need to be unloaded, right? With massive unlocks coming up, a lot of those projects, right? And it's not going to be pretty for those projects, right? In my opinion, it's better to just look at these new projects or look at the ones that didn't go that route, right? There are a few projects in Solana that didn't run to the VCs. As crazy as it sounds, it's true. There are a few projects, right? If you want to know Lifinity didn't do any weird VC bullshit, and they're kind of in the news these days in Solana for what they're doing with Saber and things like that, right? Um, so uh, keep an eye on the Gen 2 protocols and founders. That's where I think you'll have a better chance, right? Because people have to learn from the mistakes of Gen 1, right? And things that happened last year, right? And I hope that people pay close attention to this. Is going to be very important because if Solana can't attract retail, if they don't bring back retail, I mean, it's just not good for the future of Solana. It really isn't, right? When you have these VCs that are just cancerous vampires, right? And it's very harmful. It's very damaging to Solana, and that's a fact, right? And I started out the new year with that message. I haven't strayed from that, right? The very first broadcast of this year, I told the Solana community, right? There's going to have to be some hard choices that are made, right? And that's a fact, right? People have to really think carefully about, what the future of Solana is going to be, and I talked about it in uh, a lot of detail here, right? So if you want to know more of things like that have been happening, just watch this first broadcast, right, of this year, right? So until you see concrete steps again, you see some real things, real shit that they that they can prove to us that we should invest in these projects. Just be very wary, be very skeptical, right? Look very critically at these projects. I always do that on my channel. I always give my honest opinion about these projects when my subscribers ask me like what they think about a certain Solana project, right? I always give them the truth and only the truth, right? Okay, so that is it for what I wanted to cover. 만약에 한국인 I have no idea if my Korean subscribers are watching. 한국인 구독자들이 봤는지 잘 모르겠지만 어, 전달하고 싶은 말씀 다 전달했으니까 뭐 궁금한 거 있으면 뭐 솔라나 소식에 대한 뭐 궁금한 거 있으면 저한테 알려주세요. If you're curious about Solana stuff, you can always ask, right? I would be more than happy to look at stuff. If not, I'm going to be hanging out here for a little bit. 우리 구독자들이 뭐 다른 질문이 없으면 그냥 여기 조금 있고 조금 더 소식 보고 끝날게요. We'll look at some of the news going on in Solana, and then we'll wrap it up, right? I think maybe there were a couple tweets I wanted to go over. 어떤 tweet? 이 tweet도 조금 웃겼어요. I did want to go over this very funny tweet. Someone was tweeting about the Solana Bears mint, and then someone's posted, I don't have a very good relationship with birds, and that was very funny. 이것도 되게 웃겼어요. Calling out Parrot and Invictus DAO. This is very funny. I thought this is very funny, right? Let me see if there were other tweets. Yeah, I don't think there were any other tweets. So let me just look at the news. 소식 조금 더 보고 끝날게요. Just hang out here a little bit, and then we'll wrap it up. Okay, I don't think anything big's happening. This might be interesting. 이것도 볼만하네. He just tweeted this right now. Okay, so this is just comparing the composability. 결합성을 그냥 비교하네요. Ethereum하고 Solana. I guess they're just comparing composability between the two. Okay. Crypto Bahamas happening. FTX and this thing. FTX도 여기 큰 뭐 이거 축제 있네요. Okay. There's nothing really big going on in Solana. I've said what I wanted to say and responded to was it Justin's tweet. So I'll end it early today. I will catch you guys on the next one. I was gonna actually the next broadcast 다음 방송은 그 뭐지 그 웹 3.0 우승자들 보려고 했는데 이 오늘 트윗 갑작스럽게 오늘 아침에 이거 봐서 오늘 방송 이걸로 이제 했어요. So I was gonna look at the Web3 Riptide winners for my next broadcast, but I saw this tweet and I had to respond to it. So the next broadcast, 다음 방송에 그 Web3 project 볼게요. So during the next broadcast, I'll take a look at the Web3 winners, and then we'll wrap up the Riptide winners, right? Riptide 우승자들 이제 마무리할게요 다음 방송에. All right, take it easy, guys. I'll see you guys next time. 다음에 봬요. See you guys.